Live tonight from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois. We say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 5 of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. And happy that you're with us, as always, strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride on RaceSpotTV. As always, alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, happy to be joined tonight by Justin Prince in our RaceSpotTV booth. Our producer downstairs is Hugo Luis. We'll also be joined by our driver analyst in just a few moments. But first, Justin, we reached the halfway point of this season already, coming off of the one and only road race of the year at Mid-Ohio, where Matt Danson, a non-full-time competitor this time around, gets the win. We didn't talk a whole lot about the championship last week because it didn't change a ton. The story remains the same. 4 down, 6 to go, and they're all chasing Andrew Freenosh. Tell me if you've heard that story before.
Yeah, that's a very familiar story when it comes to RSR competition, to say the very least, whether it's been in Cup Series competition or during the winter time. He's been very consistent when it comes to his run so far. There's a reason he's been able to build up a decent buffer compared to the rest of the field in the points. He's been very fast everywhere so far. He's been up towards the front everywhere. And of course, started off the season with the W. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for the rest of the pack to catch up to Andrew Freenosh. But keep in mind, a lot of drivers are picking up the tempo and the pace as the weeks have gone on, such as Liam Sheen and company. It's going to be an intriguing second half of the campaign coming up with all those drivers looking to keep the pressure up.
They are poised to get into that challenge, and let's talk about where our championship picture looks coming into this evening's race. We mentioned Freenosh is still at the top of the board, and I think that race at Daytona is going to be the long-standing difference maker tonight. And he comes in with 145 points. That is 28 back to quite a battle for second. Michael Araya, only 5 points ahead of a tie between Cato and Sheen. You got Trudell in the mix as well, Nick Silver. The positions second through P6, all separated by 11 points. But again, Freenosh with that big bump with that race win in the season opener, as well as the team championship standings coming into this evening. Keep It Real Esports had another good afternoon at Mid-Ohio, and they extend their lead, now 57 points over Flat Out Motorsports. Flat Out, though, being reeled in by Extreme Performance Motorsports. So Flat Out and XPM have a very exciting battle on our hands for second and third in the team championship, but remember, there can only be one team champ, and right now, Keep It Real has got that one on lock. Justin, let's talk about this Chicagoland Speedway. We were just discussing it before we went on air this afternoon, right? Kind of funny and kind of weird to say that this racetrack is not an active speedway for all intents and purposes, right? I think that it is one of the better of the intermediate tracks on iRacing, and the good news about iRacing is when you make a schedule, you don't have to plan out, what makes sense logistically and location-wise in the country. It's a virtual racetrack, and I think it's going to be a really exciting afternoon of racing here with these Xfinity Series cars.
Yes, indeed, this is a track that brings a lot of dynamic racing when it comes to this type of car. As well, there's so many different places these drivers can go towards the top, towards the middle. Some may elect to stick all the way along the white line throughout the corners. But tire management is also very critical here at Chicagoland Speedway, here at this mile-and-a-half circuit. It's very easy to overcook the tires on the short run by charging hard to the corner. It's very easy on cold tires to snap it around. And keep in mind, notice since the start of the new build a few weeks back, a lot of side draft has also been factored in for some of the racetracks when it comes to this car. So if you've battled too long, Evan, you end up losing a ton of time on the racetrack. In some cases, 2-3 tenths per lap to anyone who's running single file around you or in front of you. So you need to be smart when it comes to when you make your moves, but also you need to be smart when it comes to how you approach the track itself.
And you can take a live look in at the qualifying session now. 40 cars make the show. 37 is the number. So nobody will be sent home this afternoon in knockout qualifying. That also means 3 new drivers going to be welcomed in off of the wait list as we head to the Rock next time out. One of the storylines, Justin, that we've been following as well, in addition to the championship and whatnot over the course of these first couple of weeks, is the diversity of this schedule. We saw Andrew Friedosh win at the Superspeedway Daytona. Michael Araya won round 2. That was the big D-shaped oval in Fontana. Malik Ray won on the short track at Iowa, and Matt Danson won on the road course at Mid-Ohio. We have not seen an intermediate track yet this year. We won't see another one again until we get to the night race at Las Vegas to end the season. So these drivers in these cars really testing several different disciplines, and most of them probably haven't touched this track admittedly in over a year.
Yeah, that's a good point, because this is a track that, while it still comes up at times in the official schedules, may start to tweedle on down in terms of that over the next few builds or so. But when it comes to this track, it hasn't really been on the official schedule in a good long while. So for a lot of the drivers, the 30 minutes before practice may have been some of their first practice laps on the new build here at Chicagoland Speedway in or a little while. And with that diversity of the racetracks, you have lots of driver racetracks, you've got super speedways coming up, you got short track painting coming up, and of course, you have your hometown racetrack coming up. So a lot of different racetracks are all amongst that schedule. Keep in mind, the final 2 races are both scheduled to finish under the lights.
It's going to be an exciting end, and I think once we get to Dega, that's going to be a very big moment in the year, where if you still have drivers double digits back from Friedosh, you're going to have to look to Dega for a big race win, or maybe a big challenge and a rough night for some of the drivers that you're going against in this championship to get you back into the conversation. That's not to say Lucas Oil won't be wild. I think it may be the most rough and tough of the races on the calendar. You saw what SRX did there recently. Lucas Oil made it onto the Winter Series campaign for the 2nd straight year in a row, and it should set things up pretty nice when we head out to Vegas, which is a good intermediate racetrack. I'm biased, being just down the road from it. I think it's one of the better ones, and you could definitely put it ahead of several others, but there's not a lot of questions going into Vegas, so I think that you're going to have to look at the road to that finale to set up this championship picture. That being said, qualifying has drawn to a close. Let's go down trackside and take a look at your SimSpeed Shop starting grid. It is Michael Laraya on the pole position tonight, looking for race win number 2 of the season. He'll be alongside the number 2 Machida, Sam Nieto, in second. Kyle Kamer and Brandon Bowie will make up row 2 with Anthony Navarro and Dylan Parker, your top 6.
7th spot tonight goes to Bradley Burke, with Andrew Friedosh in the 8th position in everyone's favorite paint scheme, to say the least. Brandon 6th and Liam Sheen, meanwhile, start 9th and 10th. Keep an eye on Sheen. He's been able to find a new home for the NASCAR World Tour qualifying series action coming up. Cody Harris and Sean Casto round out the top 12.
Nick Cohen's going to find himself back 13th, along with Joseph Tice, and Kevin King and Ross Cato make for a dynamic duo on a row number 8. Chambliss will roll from 17th tonight. He's ahead of Kyle Trudell in 18th, halfway home.
Tim Johnston starts in 19th tonight, with Grant Davis in the 20th position in car number 24. Alexander Russell starts in 21st, with Michael Johnson 22nd. Jeremy Miller starts 23rd, with Jaron Weinmaster in 24th.
And as the rest of the grid rolls through, let's bring in tonight's driver analyst, Thomas George, with us again in the RSR booth. Thomas, thanks for stopping by, and happy to have you tonight. We were just kind of talking about this racetrack before we went on, as we mentioned. As we get set looking for the green tonight, as a driver, what are some key things you're going to be looking for?
Thanks for having me in the booth, Evan. And I think Justin more or less hit the nail on the head there. The biggest factor I'm going to think about when it comes to this place, and pretty much every track we're going to in the Winter Series, tire management. You've got to be smart. You can't make any mistakes. You can't burn it up too quick. You can't be too conservative, because the competition in this series is fierce. And same usual suspects are up front that can hot lap. The question is, can they save their tires? Can they not have the Penske short run speed and maybe go the long run? We'll see what happens on the track here.
There's a couple of guys, Cato, Cohen, and Sheen, who were top 10 cars in practice that didn't qualify that well. Be curious to see if those drivers could have worked their way through under green flag conditions. But the race car going to dive to the safety of the pit lane this time. The field is in the hands of Michael Araya. We're happy that you're with us at RaceSpotTV as we say, let's go Winter Series racing in Chicago. a spin in the back and a huge stack up on lap number 1 in this race. You can see the mid-pack is dispersed down the back straightaway. Yellow flag early, and somebody got turned around. It looked like it all happened right when they went into corner number 1, and it may have all started around Michael Johnson. Let's take a look, Justin.
Wow. Just Johnson, I think, just wasn't expecting Jeremy Miller to commit to the bottom. Miller was there at the quarter panel at the very last second, but it's lap 1, turn 1. There's a lot of time to go in the race. Half the field towards the back is now significantly damaged. You need to be more patient at that mark.
It's just a tough break. You mentioned that Miller's looking. We'll get another look here at this one, Thomas, but, for Michael Johnson, I think, as well, if you make that move with 5 laps left in the race, you kind of expect the guy to stay in it. I mean, Jeremy Miller's not there, and right as Johnson kind of follows the cars that are in front of him, Jeremy just doesn't want to give up the bottom.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how racing has become in the last decade or so. If you give an inch, they're going to take it. It's not the same, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago where you might give that spot. Every spot is crucial, especially at a place like Chicagoland where track position is key. I mean, track position is key at every track we go to. In that scenario, I would have immediately gone to the white line and blocked Jeremy, as much as it may be not a nice move. It's just that kind of move you have to make. You have to protect that position, and some guys are going to learn that others aren't going to be willing to give up that spot as easy as others. So I think there should have been definitely more patience on the part of the drivers there, but it's just, that's the way the racing is. It's so competitive. You just simply can't give up those spots anymore. You got to race them.
And I think, talk about knowing the drivers as well. I think if you were aware that it was Jeremy below you, he's somebody who's not really going to lift. And the onboard gives you good luck. I mean, he's really not there until they get all the way to the corner. And I just think on lap 1, probably a little bit too much there. It was a good save initially for Johnson, but, all the traffic behind kind of came sliding through, and there's a handful of cars already down onto the pit lane. Matt Mara's night is already done. He was damaged in that one. Steve Soa's fallen a lap down. So is Shane Ewing. So is Tom Morano. All drivers involved in the chaos early here on lap number 1. Very minimal changes. Only P6 and 7 were swapped out. Burke goes from 7 to 6. The Parker drops from 6 to 7. But other than that, they really didn't have enough time for any positions to change. And lights will go out on top of the pace car this time. We'll just try that one all over again after the opening lap incident.
We'll see if everyone calms on down after seeing what happened on that start. But my main thought is to Evan. I've seen drivers in the past few times, especially when it comes to Chicagoland, actually in the race earlier today, actually. I've seen several drivers spin the tires coming out of turn 2, actually, or rather with the cold tires, just get so snapped loose that they spun off to the grass or in towards the middle of the racetrack. So a lot of these drivers, I know they have the talent. They're going to have to be careful once they get on the throttle down to the back straightaway until the tires warm up for a couple laps, just in case, after especially what we just seen.
And expected weather conditions as well tonight. It's only 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but again, we're using the default iRacing day, so it's a midsummer day. So track temp 112 degrees. That's going to be something to watch for as well as the race wears on. A pace car off it in though. Michael Laraya gets to decide when this race goes back green. We are underway, and it's a great jump for the inside as Kamer goes to second.
Kamer is in second, and Sam Nito clears the pack behind him, gets the third. They are single file through the top 3. Meanwhile, Brandon Bowie on the outside of the 27 of Anthony DeBarro. He's going to try and use that draft, while DeBarro uses the side draft to maybe stall him here. Side by side here for the top 5 position, 4th and 5th. 95 of Bradley Burke looking to maybe make his way up there through it as well.
Bowie had a run but got blocked out. There was nowhere for him to get around Sam Nieto. Same story this time. It's DeBarro underneath him, and it's Nieto in front of him. So for the time being, the 34 just pinched to the outside. It's the same story for Freenosh and for Liam Sheen. A bit further on back. Bowie not all the way to the fence, though, and staying locked in that battle with DeBarro. The runoff of 2 finally going to allow him to get clear. Yes, it does. Now he'll swing to the inside. 2 Car goes down to seal that off, and everybody trying to get single file early in this one. You can see some side-by-side a little bit further on back. That's the 66 of 6 alongside the 3 of Dylan Parker. And now you see Bradley Burke going to the apron. He wants the challenge for P5.
Some decent battling so far amongst these drivers, but keep in mind that apron's going to be a major talking point because some drivers feel like it's good to cut that because it's the shortest distance around, but others feel like it burns the tires a lot. Here comes Freenosh, though, with the chance in the second the bottom to open up here. Just about everybody decided, you know what? Let's get to the bumper of the 88 of Freenosh, and some nearly snapping it around like Sheen there to keep up.
You don't see a lot of those big moves by Freenosh on board with Brandon 6, and you can see they are still 3 wide. Freenosh on the bottom. It is the 34 of Bowie in the middle. The 95 of Burke to the outside. Here clears. Now Liam Sheen trying to squeeze the 92 Chevrolet in there, but it won't matter. Bowie tucks down in front of Freenosh, and we go back to racing side by side. Thomas, we see Freenosh have such success, but as I mentioned, he's not really the guy that makes those 3 wide dive bomb moves, and I think that's well represented in the fact that he is the only driver who has started more than one race this season that averages only 1 incident point or less per race. That's lowest out of anybody in the series. It is because he doesn't put himself in those compromising positions very often.
Yeah, Evan, you definitely hit the nail on the head. If I were to make a comparison to a type of driver than Andres, I would have to say he's Mark Martin. He doesn't get more than what the car will give him. He makes calculated, smart decisions. He doesn't usually put it in a position to where he can't make it work. And seeing him go 3 wide, it's definitely interesting. Now you're seeing him run the top here. We're seeing possible multiple grooves. He's searching around, trying to see if he can find speed somewhere. And again, it just rolls back to that Mark Martin type of driving. Where can I make my car better? And where can I do it without putting myself in danger? And right now, he's running close. He's run 7th right now, and he doesn't need to do anything spectacular throughout the rest of the season. Just needs to keep running, giving good finishes, top 5s, top 10s. Doesn't really even need to win. If he doesn't win and just runs consistently well, he wins a championship. It's just his MO. He knows how to do it. But we also can't forget, especially in the championship battles at Phoenix, where the top 4 have all got a shot to win a championship, he knows when to hit the gas and make those clutch moments happen. It's happened for the last 4 years, so why would it be any different now?
And you can, I think the point there is, that I take away the fact that he doesn't need to do too much, and he's been able to earn that right based on how he's raced so far, right? He leads Michael Lariah coming into tonight. Lariah's leading this race. Lariah's looking to become the first repeat winner of the year. We've seen him, Freenosh, Ray, and Danson get a race win, so Lariah's a threat. But even if Michael Lariah were to win outright, Freenosh just getting consistent top 5s is going to make that so difficult, and that's why I think Freenosh not that worried about it now. Liam Sheen's also ahead of him, but Freenosh has that ability to not stress all that much. Certainly not in the danger zone at this point. As you can see, he's going much higher up the hill, Tice down to the inside, and then swinging it wide on the exit of the corner. That was another one of our pre-race talking points before we went on the air. Justin, would drivers use the outside? Was it a viable option here at Chicago still as we go on board with Ross Cato? This is basically what the top has been, right? Mid to high. We haven't seen anybody alone or double wide go way to the outside fence yet.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, where if you take the arc too high, it's easy to get yourself caught on the fence. I think that's partly why we're seeing drivers stick right around here. This is above the 2nd seam, right below the 3rd seam, because if you run towards that wall, you run the risk, 1, of catching the edge of the safety barrier coming off of turn 2. But also, there's the side forces to the wall, as you know, Evan, that can factor on in, which for some, they don't like, drivers, I should say, don't like to be hampered by the potential of the side force with the wall in the service. So you essentially, in turn, run a lane lower, try to avoid potential bumps, try and make sure you don't get essentially side drafted by the wall. It's a little counterintuitive compared to real life, obviously, but in turn, it's a strategy a lot of the drivers like to take, and you see that in discussion for a lot of the racetracks these days when it comes to this type of car.
It is indeed the case, and Ross as well, rocking that RSR hoodie. Love to see that. He rides right now in 13th position. That is +3. There's been a couple of big losers to start this race. Brandon Bowie has fallen all the way from 4th to 16th. He's -12. Brandon Six has also fallen from 9th to 17th. So a couple of drivers have gone the wrong direction, giving some of these drivers towards the middle of the field an opportunity to make some moves. Is Trudell thinking about making a move on the 12? Can't find the bottom. Good fighting up the road to them as well, as Kevin King is trying to get around Nick Cohan. So a couple of fights just outside of the top 10. There's the two duos as they race off to turn 1.
Yeah, and this has been a battle that's been brewing for probably the last 5 laps, Evan. It was about a 6 or 7 car pack going at it, but now things have kind of quietly filed out to more or less a single file down the front back stretch with a little bit of space in between. And I was going to make that mention of Brandon Bowie. I'm wondering, because I've seen this been played out before, where you start out up front and you figure out really quick that your tires aren't going to be really good after about 4 or 5 laps. So I'm wondering, is his car really that bad right now, or did he purposely drop that far back, considering how spaced out the field has gotten, and maybe he's trying to save a little something and charge back through the field? I'm not saying it's a foolproof plan, because the car might just be that bad right now for him, but I have seen it happen before where guys will purposely drop that far back, save their tires for 25 laps, hope for the long green flag run, and then charge back to the field. But I'm kind of questioning it right now.
Yeah, their gap is about 3 seconds up to the race leaders, or Michael Araya enjoying a 0.5 of a second advantage over this fight. Kyle Kamers, number 8 Ford in SK Sim Racing colors, way to the outside. It's going to allow him to get the better run down the back straightaway. That 27 to DeBarro trying to stick with him. This is the fight for 3rd and 4th. And we talk about the term intermediate track, Justin. I always preferred that one over cookie cutter because, well, a lot of them are the same. They all have their unique characteristics, and this is one of them as well, that resembles the fact that it was, in fact, one of the newer ones that opened in 2001. The fact that that back straightaway isn't really a straightaway at all. It's got a constant curve to it, and then, of course, you have the tri-oval on the front, so you're really never not turning here at Chicago.
You hit it right there. You're constantly having to move the wheel essentially around the racetrack, and so many drivers have different approaches, as we've mentioned. In the past 5, 6, 7+ years with Chicagoland hosting races prior to 2020, it actually had some of its most iconic moments, in my opinion, Evan, because with the track surface wearing out, it just got that much racier. Of course, slide job comes to mind, for one, but you also have to remember one of the look-backs for drivers in terms of some of the favorite moments. 2014 Chicagoland playoff action, I believe, was at the time, where you had essentially a wild restart, which was at the time the 900 horsepower Cup car package. There's been plenty of exciting moments here at this racetrack, Evan, and it showcased if you've got the right amount of age when it comes to the pavement itself, you can get a very racy racetrack.
And this is one of those good battles, that 3 wide where Kevin King got squeezed out on the inside of the battle that was between Cohen and Harris. Nick Cohen clears on the outside of turn 2. I know Kevin King did try to drive his way on through. He makes a pass and move Kevin King up to position number 11. He is +4 on the night. That is the first spot lost for Cody Harris this afternoon. I mentioned that Matt Morrow was out of the race. He's trying to get back in it, but Tom Morano has also gone to the garage, so 2 retirees early. Ewing and Soa still the only 2 drivers off of the lead lap of those still active. 33 cars total on the lead lap still, working lap number 23 of 125. And one of the differences that is a constant theme between a Cup Series race at RSR, Thomas, versus a Winter Series race is these races are much shorter, right? The Cup Series races are 50% of that of our NASCAR Cup Series counterparts. So at a racetrack like this, you might see a 134 on a rare occasion, but you're normally getting 167 laps in, right? These Winter Series races are only about 125 laps on average at a racetrack this size. Does that shorter change make you approach the race any differently, or is it not a big enough difference to make it matter?
I've never thought it was a big enough difference to make it matter, at least in my style of driving. I'm understanding that, you know, when it comes to a shorter race, it does factor up the intensity, if you will, a little bit. You know, we've seen here, for example, Balfour Ford, we had to borrow fighting the 88 and the 95 here, along with the, I believe that's the 5 of Dice and the 92 of Liam Sheen. They were fighting there. He's now able to pull away, but you see those guys, they're still fighting for every bit of track position. You're trying to see where you can gauge your pit stops are coming from this. You know, are my tires falling off so bad that I need to maybe short pit because it is a shorter race? It may not kill me as much in the long run. And you can see with the 44, Michael Araya, maybe his tires are starting to fall off a little bit now because the 2-car Sam Nieto, he's slowly catching him. So now that begs the question, when do I pit? Or can I go ahead and maybe say I'm going to do a one-stop race? So there's different strategies when the race is a little bit shorter and you know you can be a little bit more aggressive.
A good look at number 95 machine as well of Bradley Burke. We've seen Get Wet Sports on his entry. We've also seen it, I think, across the service with the likes of Ryan Vargas and some other drivers. So good to see them involved here on the RSR side. And Bradley Burke's 95 car doing a pretty good job justing up in P6.
Yeah, they've been trying to get themselves, it seems, into the esports scene in terms of iRacing specifically over the past couple months. Started off with Vargas, what was his first virtual sponsor, now bringing it on over to this level as well, where essentially they have different types of communities when it comes to which drivers are a part of the rosters, which games they're a part of community-wise. They've hosted tournaments, community outreach, 2,000 plus members in regards to Get Wet Sports. They've been definitely getting themselves wet when it comes to their involvement into esports on iRacing in particular, and really wanting to get themselves soaked and immersed in the platform itself as well.
They've been testing out the waters very well, so get all the water puns in, and it's a good look at a race car, and happy to have them involved, not only with Bradley and his team, as well as with everybody here at RSR, and of course, I think just the sim racing community as a whole, as he's trying to catch up to Debarro, trying to close in on him. That's the battle for P5 and P6. One thing to note, though, if you've been taking a look at the intervals on the left-hand side of your screen, is that the top spot, that gap has shrunk a little bit. Kevin King still working his way forward. He's going to try to squeeze off Dylan Parker there side by side off of 2, trying to break his way into the number 9 position. But up front, Laria's advantage, that was a half a second, down to 2/10. So that 2 cars, Sam Nieto is one of the faster cars on track, and he is slowly reeling him in now that we've gotten some 24 laps on us since our last restart. Maybe Laria a little bit burning up the tires early in the run. I mean, Nieto's not, flying at an insane pace, but certainly I think when Laria got to half a second, I was expecting him to really start checking out, and it's balanced out a little bit, but maybe not as easy breezy as Laria once thought this one would be, is this time by 30 laps down.
Yeah, and honestly, this reminds me of a situation I had at one of your so-called not favorite tracks, Kentucky, probably 5 years ago or something like that, and it just came down to this kind of same thing. It came down to a pit stop. I was running behind my teammate Greg Evans for first for the win, essentially. He was leading, and I was second, and I just could not get enough momentum to catch up to him with the draft. So it came down to that final set of pit stops where I was able to knock off a great pit stop. He slid through his stall, and I was able to win the rest of the race. It's just, that's how close these cars are now. Essentially, I don't want to say they're IROC because they're not, but they're all more or less the same car now. So now it just comes down to how much tire have you been able to save? Are you now balanced out to the point that you can't do anything else? Or are you like the 88 there in fourth, as he looks like he's going to be making a move on Kyle Kammer here? Has he saved enough tires to maybe come catch these guys? It's just, at this point of the race now, I'm thinking, okay, how soon can I pit without killing myself in the long run in terms of time and tires?
And there is the move on the inside. He clears the 8 car. There will be no counter from Kamer. He'll just simply give him a shove and a wave down off the corner, and I think he knows when's good enough. Tries to get on the bottom, though, this time at abundant 2, but the driver out of South Salem, New York, Andrew Freenosh, should shake him off there, and now has sole possession of 3rd position. And that's the funny thing, but it comes to Andrew because he started this race at 8th. That is by far and large just at a sub-average qualifying performance for the 88 team. And then immediately when I see something like that, I tend to think, is this guy better on the long run? Is this guy better on the short run? And I think that Andrew definitely prefers green flag racing. But at no point did I think that P8 and say, he's kind of out of this, right? He's a little bit too far back because he can do it long run, short run, no matter what. And I think the big key for him was getting those spots early to avoid this mess, because this group here from Liam Sheen P6 on back are all on top of each other, kind of the hornet's nest here, tail end of the top 10.
Yeah, I think for Freenosh, it's just been stay calm, just save tires, pick your spots where they're at. Because for a lot of the top drivers, they'll tell you at this point, if you're able to save that little extra bit in the first part of the run, you're able to usually blow on by those who charged hard by the second half of the race, run on those tires. At this point, it's pretty clear in this gaggle that Burke may have burned up his tires trying to keep up with the rest of the grouping here, and now he's essentially the cork in the bottle. Kevin King may not like getting held up here too much. A little bit of a poke to the inside to try and force the issue here as he continues his progression on forward. He's been amongst those I've noticed, Evan, who have been saving tires a lot this run. There's the radar.
Yeah, a couple of drivers in the green, right? Freenosh +5, Shane +4, Tice +7, and Kevin King +5. Just slowly working their way through the field, playing the long con in this one. Now past 1/3 distance in tonight's Sim Speed Shop of 125. So Cohen's going to ride on the bottom. Harris thinking about going to the outside. You see Kevin King's 31 pushes up a little bit sooner, and Bradley Burke has got a mirror full of Reese's here as the 31 now looks to the inside. King alongside. They'll fight for 9th position, and how about a slide job on an intermediate? He pulls up, not clear! And Burke is in the fence off at turn 2. No caution. We stay green. Justin, I saw that one developing. He started to slide up. Burke kept his foot in it, trying to squeeze to the outside, and that ended terribly for the 95 car.
Pretty clear that Kevin King did not want to wait any longer, was trying to clear on by there. The thing I don't think he may have noticed was Burke was nearly about 10 degrees drifting to the corner, to the point where he actually bobbled down a little bit, coming before the contact with Kevin King. Significant hit to the wall with the safer barrier. Burke, he's going to be in for a world of hurt the rest of the way.
Wreck on the back.
Out down the back stretch.
Yeah, we just saw that, a spinner right at the back of the camera shot. There's a second look at Bradley Burke into the outside wall, and it's Miller for a second time tonight. Remember, Miller was involved in contact on the opening lap of this race, but I believe this one will be self-inflicted into the outside wall. And then the 77, I think, James Pasquarello is going to be the second driver in this one. Long green flag run, nothing for a long time, Thomas, and then Miller on his own.
Yeah, he just overdrove it. It looks like the right front, I won't say it blew, but he just... It's one of those things about this track. It's so deceptive that it's the same thing we saw at Auto Club a lot of times when I was in the last time in the booth. Gets loose. You think it's going to not turn. You don't think it's going to turn. You're cranking the wheel, getting back in the throttle. Next thing you know, if you burn that right front up too much, just going straight into the wall. And I think it was maybe the same thing with Bradley Burke. Just got too tight. Didn't want to give up the spot though. And well, 2 cars are damaged again. And well, their nights are more or less probably done with all that damage.
And this will kind of clarify the strategy, Justin, as we head to the pit lane, because we're down with 86 laps to go, so clearly now a 2-stopper.
Well, technically a 1-stopper from this point under green flag conditions to make it on the gas, in theory, Evan, because you can try and split this up the middle, which will be about a 40-lap run apiece, give or take. So there is that opportunity. One driver missed their pit box by 5 stalls. Sean Casto, I think, tried to pit in Liam Sheen's box, thinking the 92 stall was the 52s.
So that is an unfortunate break there for Sheen, who had been one of the drivers going the right direction. Going to cost him time, a little bit of 3 wide off of the pit lane, and there is pit stop number 1 of 2 on the 2-stop strategy. Like you mentioned, makes it pretty easy for these drivers to decide to split this, go about 40 from this point on to the end. And no major changes, I should say, towards the front of the field. Michael Araya stays up front. Of course, he loses his advantage, but I think this is big for the likes of Freenosh, who gained track position but not space. Here's Casto, and you can see there's cars in the stalls in front, but he wasn't particularly close, and I just have to wonder if that was a little bit of timidness, trying to make sure he didn't get into other cars on the pit lane and whatnot. But regardless, that's a lot of time thrown away.
Yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate mistakes if you make on pit road. It can cost you a lot of track position, and I've already mentioned, track position here is everything. Some guys are able to go to the back and save those tires and get back up front, but the cars are so close together that now it's so hard to make up those track positions. And now essentially we have a hard reset. To explain for the audience, when we say it's a 2-stop race, this is the first of those 2 stops. So, we get to 40 laps to go or 45 laps to go, you're in your window to make it. But there's always the possibility somebody may go ahead and pit with 60 to go and get on that teetering edge to do it and see if they can get a break at some point when the pit cycle's through. So there's a lot of different strategies that can be played. I don't foresee a lot of people trying that, but we've seen some people do it before and just, they've been able to come out on the lucky side of things.
Here's a look at Kamer's mistake. His happened when the car in front of him was getting onto the brakes at the very same time, and I have to wonder, that's probably what messed the 8 car up, right? The fact that the car in front of him, he knows that guy's the stall ahead of me, was probably just going to start to brake when the car in front of him did, and, when you start slowing down and the car in front of you isn't, or vice versa, it's just a little weird, and you can see that his mistake was far less severe than what we saw at a Casto, but still enough for him to overshoot the box and lose some time, so that will shuffle up the running order a little bit under the yellow flag. Mike Laraya will maintain the race lead as noted off of the pit lane. Also, Jeremy Miller claiming responsibility for that last incident. He was also assigned blame for the lap number 1 incident in this race, so that'll count as his second to cause caution of the afternoon, and Jeremy Miller will have to serve a 1-lap black flag penalty once the race goes back underway. Doubled up, getting set for the restart.
Yeah, it's been entertaining so far, but I'm really curious on how Laraya holds up now that everything's bunched back together. You have drivers like Freenosh getting a lot of rhythm together. Just notice this, though. Freenosh, I think during the pit stop sequence coming off the lane, somehow picked up damage in the stall without getting touched. That is a new one I've just noticed in terms of the 88, so we'll have to see if he's hampered there with the rest of these drivers getting ready to go.
He definitely has some rear damage, so we'll see if that's going to affect Freenosh. He did not have it prior to the caution flag, and he did get that damage on the pit lane when he was getting service. Pace car going to be off and in this time. Let's see what Michael Laraya does. He decides to go to the outside line for this restart. Drivers must maintain their lanes until this race is back underway. Green flag flies, and you can see the 2 car waited until it was allowed, went to the apron to try to get a little bit of space, and off and into turn number 1. Laraya is clear.
And the 27 clears the 2 car here for second place, sorry. And he's already looking like he's charging after Michael Laraya. He's been biding his time, running around the top 5 all day, but let's see if he can go challenge up there as the 88 goes underneath the 2 car here, coming out of going into turn 3, coming out of turn 4. And not quite clear yet.
Luckily, though, there may have been some trouble with that restart. You may have noticed the reason for the checkup coming down the front stretch. Sam Nieto, I think, may have missed a shift, Evan. His back bumper completely demolished. All of the leaders are fighting.
And side by side for the race lead, here comes the 27 of Anthony DeBarro, drag racing down the back straightaway. Can he use this restart opportunity to try to punch his way through to the race lead? He should get the run off of 4, putting Laraya in the compromising spot. Does Laraya go down to the apron to use it? No. He'll stay alongside the 27. Expect DeBarro high and Laraya low, and we'll see where they match up off of the turn. I think it's just going to be too tough for Laraya to get in front. And how about Anthony DeBarro? Great couple of laps he puts together, and he is the new race leader at lap 45.
And now comes the time of the race where will Michael Laraya be able to save those tires and challenge DeBarro later in the run? We know DeBarro was running in the top 5, around 4th or 5th, but wasn't quite catching him. Has DeBarro learned something? Has Laraya learned something? But meanwhile, we also have a battle here between the 92 and the 2 car as they go side by side here for behind the 88 of Andrew Freenosh. Looks like the 2 is going to get the momentum up top, and Liam shuts the door on the 3 car. Oh man, I love this kind of racing.
The 92 machine trying to find that middle gap, and Can't really pay too much attention to Dylan Parker. His primary focus was the two of Sam Nieto up the road, and Parker certainly got squeezed out a little bit on that one. Dylan Parker trying to look to the outside in his peak performance motorsports Ford Mustang. Can't do it. Now Sheen flips the script again. Nieto stays low. Sheen goes to the outside. He's got a great run off of the corner, and the 92 will drive alongside.
And Liam Sheen looking very confident right now. If you look towards the very back end of that race car, it was talked about, of course, Evan. I believe he was amongst the independents coming into this series this wintertime. He's now a part of the team working with Kevin King's organization amongst the Road to Pro efforts coming up. So that's going to be a big benefit, I think, for Liam Sheen to be able to learn, be able to pick things up setup-wise, to be able to continue to gain more confidence as a driver. That's leading, I think, to a lot of the positive progression we were talking about before tonight's race that Sheen's been showing the past couple weeks.
He has really continued to improve, and if it wasn't for Matt Danson there, probably had a good look at a second win of the year, or first win of the year, I should say, but second road course win in RSR in as many seasons if he was able to get the job done in Mid-Ohio. So he's somebody else who, again, is constantly in the conversation. Freenosh is way up top. Sheen, the two car Nieto, the three of Parker, all choosing the inside line. That time down the back straightaway. This group, Freenosh on the back, about 7/10 off at the top two. It's still Tabarro first and Lariah in second. Next time by, we'll take lap number 50. Sheen continues to seal off the inside, and Sheen versus Freenosh could be one of the most exciting battles of the year, I think, to watch. Of course, Lariah in that mix in the championship as well, I think, has probably been better than any of those two cars behind him as well, Thomas. But Andrew's been saying all year, right, he doesn't know that he's going to be able to make every single start this year. So even if you come into a race like this and you're 28 points behind Freenosh, there's always a chance, due to work commitments, he can't be there, and that's a storyline that's going to be major in this championship.
Yep, and as we talk about that, we have a change for a lead here as the 44, Michael Araya, gets by easily the 27 of Anthony Navarro. Just kind of looked like he let him go there. I'm curious to, and we'll get back to the championship battle in a moment, but I'm curious to see if there's any damage on that right side of the 44. I was watching him slowly reel in the 27 there, and it looked like he might have tapped the wall coming out of it about 5 laps ago. So, but going back to the championship battle, you're right. Every driver has to run and get the best possible finish, because in Liam Sheen's case, if Andrew does miss a race, that's what, about 35 points at least, depending on who shows up. If he finishes even just in the top 10, you get a 25-point advantage at the 88, and you can't afford to miss a race if you're trying to fight for the championship. Not saying that Andrew can't win it by missing one, but you never want to miss a race if you're fighting for that championship,
And you can see the front end damage as well on Freenosh, that we were wondering if that damage was going to be affecting him on this most recent run of the race. It doesn't appear to have had any performance issues to this point, as Liam Sheen continuing to stay ahead. Sheen sits in third, Freenosh still in the number 4 position at the moment, and Dylan Parker with a real bad exit that time off of turn number 2. So here comes Sam Nieto in the 2 car. He drives his way through on the inside, is almost going to clear himself. Now he is, and he's trying to work his way back up through.
Dylan Parker, I think, has just been trying to get a feel of things. Remember, he started off rough with essentially started at the bottom of the racetrack when the preferred line, it seemed, early on when the track was fairly green, was the middle line. For Dylan Parker, remember, a lot of experience when it comes to NASCAR competition on other platforms. But now you can see with the logos that are on his car, he's pretty much now essentially saying, Evan, he's making that commitment to make a charge, it seems, for NASCAR on iRacing side. He's been wanting to do this for a few years. I will say this. This is now the big opportunity for Dylan Parker to show what he can do against top talent at this level, for one, in this type of car, but two, to be able to build a lot of confidence for the springtime for his approach potentially to try and make a run for 2023, you'd have to think.
Yeah, I mean, these drivers, I think, always like to have long-term goals, and that was one of the storylines we followed into the fall for the Cup Series. All of the different major names in this series that competed in that eNASCAR Road to Pro qualified iRacing series. And, the drivers that made it to the Contender Series as well. As you can take the onboard look in there with Tice. Again, he's tucked up behind Dylan Parker in front of him. 2 cars underneath them. That is Sam Nieto. Top side's going to win out this time, though. Both Parker and Tice clear up top, and as Nieto pulls in line behind, Kevin King wants to join the party. Kevin has been one of the best cars under green flag conditions tonight. Not going to have the positioning on the bottom of the 2 machine there, but he'll line it up and try it again. Consistency is the key, and just slowly chip it away.
If there's one thing I know about Kevin King, and he's a well-known name among the iRacing community, he doesn't let everything, come to him at once. He takes his time, makes those smart, strategic decisions, figures out what the car is going to give him. And you can just by the eyeball test right now, he's got that car planted on that white line. I think he has saved that right front, and I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to make these moves fairly quickly. Oh, and I've just noticed that there's a little bit of damage on the back of the 2 car. I wonder if that's causing any issues with him there, but...
That's from that restart, remember.
Was it from the restart? Sorry, I didn't get to see that. But no, back to what Kevin King. It looks like he's going to make the move on Tice here, and I'm telling you guys, that car looks like it's handling well. I think he's saved a little something here. We may be talking about him before the end of the night here.
Yeah, I think I heard as well over the driver radio that the issue there with Sam Nieto was a misshift, and that's why Freenosh got into him. So, Justin, you mentioned damage on Freenosh's car. That was the back-end damage from pit road. The front-end damage came, of course, from that contact on the restart. That's also what the subsequent back-end damage came from the 2 machine of Sam Nieto and Joseph Tice. Dirt track at a turn number 2. That 5 car was yawed out on the outside wall and hangs on to it. These guys clearly are wheeling these things right now, and that 5 is using a lot of counter steer to keep that car on the tracks.
I think he's overheated the right rear if he's having to use that much counter steer. Look at this again throughout the corner. He's now moving to the bottom, I think, to try and figure out something different here with the different lines. And even then, you see a little bit of a bobble right there. He's essentially overheated that right rear tire, Evan, to the point where he can't get enough grip to exit the corner with it. And when he's getting back on the throttle, it's wanting to step out. Here's a look at it specifically. He's thinking, okay, I'm fine with consistent throttle. Boom, it just steps out of you. No chance in terms of response other than to hope that you correct it enough to the point where you don't aggravate the tire wear as well. Because here's the thing, too. A lot of drivers will mention if you try and modulate the throttle to save it, it can also overheat things, as Parker nearly lost it through turn 2 again.
I mean, they are racing hard right now. Tice on the outside of Parker, and maybe it's a bit of a bold move to pinch that guy underneath you when you know that everybody's having a little bit of handling issues as that track temp has continued to climb up and up now to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. But Tice wins out on the outside, stays ahead of Parker, and he'll take over sole possession of P6 as Kevin King up the road. You can see it from Tice's onboard there on the right-hand side, still trying to get underneath Andrew Freenosh. Freenosh is -1 since the restart. That's when Liam Sheen passed him for third. You don't normally have a run where Freenosh goes into the negative, but he has slipped back to 4th, and Kevin King looks like the faster of those 2 right now.
Yep, and I was going to say, here comes Kevin King as he looks on the inside going into turn 1. I think he's got to save that tire pretty well for himself, but right now we've got a battle for the lead here. Looks like Michael Araya on the outside here. Anthony DeBarro on the inside trying to find a way around him while Araya uses that top line to get the momentum here. And Anthony DeBarro nose to tail. They're side by side going into 3 and 4 here. Who's going to have the advantage coming out of the turn 4? It looks like Araya for the moment.
He's trying to get underneath, but unable to do so. Remember, it was DeBarro's lead when he kind of rolled over and gave it to Michael Araya, I think planning for this on the long run, thinking, you take it now, I'll save my stuff, I'll be better on the back half. But the problem is, Araya is playing the positioning very well in this battle. He's keeping it on the middle line. He's going to force DeBarro to really drive hard and work that race car, Justin, to try to clear him down low. And it's a tall order for the 27 to do that on the bottom.
Yeah, the Dizzy Motorsports machine has made it very clear, especially with paint scheme tonight. he's not afraid to go with some of the sliders. He's been trying it a couple times, but right now you can tell Laria's trying to feed him dirty air, trying to change his line, force him to try and ride on behind and take away his preferred groove. Because there is a little bit of an aero bubble that you reach right about here, where it takes a little bit to try and get working. The aero push really affects within half a second or closer. So for DeBarlo, it's going to take a little bit of time to get things figured out in a way that won't burn off the right rear, especially since we're just past halfway, just about inside the fuel mark. But here's the thing. Guess who's coming? The king of the tire safe tonight, Kevin King, is up to third and looking to teach Liam Sheen some things.
You're not sure if he really had, the opportunity to do what he wanted to, but his RSR debut last week at Mid-Ohio started that race 12th, raced his way up to 9th, did a very good job of gaining positions. But you talk about the notoriety, and Kevin King, as mentioned, one of the more well-known drivers here on the iRacing service, and has been doing a very good job so far. Very, very impressive in his oval debut. Again, having gotten around Liam Sheen, who we've spent much of the night talking about how well Sheen has been on his upward trajectory so far tonight. However, we are now past halfway home in the Sim Speed Shop 125. Let's take a look, talk the bottom, and walk you through the field with a look at our Sim Speed Shop Midway race break. It all starts here, the battle for the race lead. Michael Araya still leading. He's ahead of DeBarlo by a car length right now, and when we talk about the positions, we'll watch this throughout. Kevin King up to third is about 0.8 of a second off of this. He's just ahead of Liam Sheen, and Andrew Freenosh is inside of the top 5. Joseph Tice is 6th. Dylan Parker 7th, ahead of Sam Niano in a battle in the number 8 spot. Brandon DeBuey's 9th, and Kyle Kamer just rounds out the top 10, fighting with Nick Cohen.
Midway race break just about had the curse come into play, by the way, Evan, because right around this grouping, 11th on back, Jared Weinmaster was sent off to the grass off the front nose of the 11th place car. Now on track, Kyle Kamer. He's battling with Cody Harris, who avoided contact with all of that. They also have David Kolb, who's also in this grouping, plus 19 for the Vendaval driver. Vendaval getting to stock car racing, I guess, as Brandon Six is in 14th. Trudell, Cato, Johnston, Weinmaster's now back to 18th, significant left rear damage. Nick Silver's in 19th, and Grant Davis right where he started in 20th.
I think he's just happy to be in this after that save. We'll get a look when the Midway race break's done. Rabel's 21st, Brian Chambliss 22nd, ahead of William Schmidt 23rd, and Alexander Russell in 24th. Josh Ball back in 25th. Sean Casto has slid way out after starting 12th. He's 26th, ahead of Anansi Major 27th. James Pasquarella is 28th, Shane Ewing 29th, and Trevin Valderrama is 30th.
31st spot tonight right now held by Michael Johnson, involved in the lap 1, turn 1 caution. He's right now 16 seconds back of the leaders, followed by Bradley Burke, 32nd after his contact with Kevin King. Steve Silva's in third right now. Jeremy Miller, he's out of the race after getting a black flag for that second cause caution total. He's 34. Chris Edwards parked it after he was struggling with damage from that first incident. He's now in 35th. Matthew Mara DNF'd early, as well as Tom Moreno. They're 36-37 to round out the entries.
So look at the bottom at your Sim Speed Shop Midway race break. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. So that's where we sit at halfway. Weinmaster with a scare, but this race stays green. And here's what happened to Weinmaster. Right-hand side of your screen. The bobble by Kamer, one touch, and that was the second one, was the scary one. Certainly could have hooked the Harambo to Racing Chevrolet, but instead he uses all that grass on the front straightaway. Listen, dropping from 12th to 18th, Thomas, is a big fall, but certainly could have been a lot worse.
Oh, absolutely. I've been on the worst end of that stick numerous times throughout my decade almost of iRacing, so he's still got a chance. A caution might come out here. You never know, but I'm more focused on the... looks like we got... sounds like Bradley Burke is being slow. We'll take a look at that. He's coming to pit road, but... Well, guys, we've been talking about it for probably the last 20 laps. Guess who's come to join the party for the lead?
He's up there. Kevin King joins the party. Some issue with Bradley Burke is going to force him to reset the car. I thought maybe that Bradley Burke was going to come in for early pit stops. We've been out there for 34 laps, 51 to go, so we're not quite halfway yet, but that's not the case. And again, Anthony DeBarro not wanting to fight. He did the same thing when he let Michael Araya go to the race lead, and now he does it in the battle of the second. He moves out of the way, Justin, and now Kevin King is at a race-high P2 and knocking on the door of our race leader, Michael Araya. This is big in the championship, right? Unlike the Cup Series, you don't have a win and you're in. But the big difference is for Laraya trying to gain points like Andrew Friedosh tonight is that every position in the field is a 1-point difference except for the race winner. That's a 5-point difference, first and second, and that could go a long way in Laraya's title fight, but he is no longer the fastest car on track.
Yeah, Kevin King, the former NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver from the very early days of the series' history, has been very quick when it comes to his tire conservation. Up to a 1/10 of a second quicker last time by. His past 10 laps have also been 1/10 of a second quicker than Michael Araya. It's just a matter of hoping that the car stays on the racetrack. And it looks like at this point, Laraya not making it quite easy, but King's in a great spot where he can just wait for Laraya to try to arc it in, and he can just send it on in. Has enough grip with how he's been able to play this race to be able to peel it away.
Kevin King, a 4-time winner in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, but most recently as of Texas in 2014. So as you mentioned, a driver that was around in the very early years of that championship, but has not really, stepped away from the service and continues to be one of the top competitors. Not normally racing in, full-time league competitions, but you'll see him in a lot of the special events and major events all over the service. And he is on the team this year alongside his newly acquired teammate for the team, Liam Sheen. Here's the challenge now. King looking to the inside, and Laraya is going to try to use the top to defend, just like he successfully did on DeBarro. Now, we know that Kevin King might be thinking slide job Thomas because that's when he and Burke made contact. Similar situation. Kevin was underneath the car he was trying to pass and tried to slide up in front. Curious if he'll try it again, this time with a 44.
Oh, guys, trouble in the back straight away. A couple drivers just crashed.
It's the 8 car. Kyle Kamer, who was in a top position, made contact. He was in 12th. He and Brandon 6 got together. And that was a battle for 12th and 13th spot. They just got together. Nobody ends up with major damage, but it's going to take them both out of kind of competition here because they lose so much time. And that is kind of an incident out of nowhere. After those two get together, only 2 drivers involved, so no caution.
Yeah, I'm starting to suspect that these tires are reaching their limit. We are well within the window to make it to the end here. We're at lap 80, so it's been 40 laps since the restart here. The question is going to be, who of these leaders is going to die first? Because these tires are just screaming off the corner. You see the 31, Kevin King, he's on the bump, trying to make it work. Laraya stays to the outside. He wants that momentum. We know Kevin King is faster, but Laraya, if he just keeps running the way he is, he could probably hold off Kevin King until he makes a mistake himself. It's just now becomes a battle of on the track and of the battle of the pit crews.
There's a replay of the incident on the backstretch. Kind of a weird one where it looked like 6 was moving up, pushing up, and maybe the 8 car Kamer was trying to look low to make a pass in front of him. And again, they both were able to use the pretty wide back straightaway runoff down there in the grass to avoid contact with the wall. But again, they were 12th and 13th at the time, and they're now well down the running order as some drivers towards the rear have started to make their pit stops. The math seems pretty easy to me. Next time by, you're going to be on these tires for 42 laps with 44 to go. So next time by, you're halfway through the run. However, drivers like to save a little bit maybe in case this race goes to overtime, Justin. But I would have to think they've only used 1 set of tires as we see Nieto off of the pit lane. They have 4 total. I think if you're getting to the end of the race and we're talking overtime, you're coming down pit road anyways. So I don't think many drivers are going to try to push it too far unless you're somebody, say, at the back of the pack trying to catch a yellow.
I think so, as there's the giveaway right there. Laraya giving the ghost up for Kevin King after the hard charge he's been showcasing. Now it's in Laraya's court, I think, here, Evan, because now he's got the opportunity, if he elects to do so, to try and undercut the 31. The difference is, though, Kane's also got the advantage in that he might be able to try and go for the overcut with how he's been able to manage the tires. It will cost him time on the track. The tire fall off for the race leader is about 1.6 to 1.8 seconds. However, based on what we've seen from King, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to counter and follow Lariah if he sees the arc coming in quickly for Lariah, if he can get quick enough to the brakes.
And I was surprised that once Lariah got overtaken, he didn't immediately decide to go to the pit lane. Sometimes you'll see that happen. Somebody who's a bit slower in the long run is going to wait until that car gets there, and then they'll get down and go for the undercut, gain an immediate advantage. These current lap times just under 2 seconds slower than what their fastest laps of the afternoon were. So there is something to be gained by a very quick undercut. We'll see. A lot of drivers up front and down, so they're going to be coming down to the pit lane. Bowie says he's coming in. Tice says he's coming in, but the top two do not. So DeBarro, first driver in from third. That was a bit close. Down pit road speed of 50.
Anthony DeBarro, pretty aggressive. Oh, we got a spin on the pit road here. The 9 is around. Oh, whoa, what happened here?
Chambliss is out of control on the entry to the pit lane. I believe it was all on his own, and Chris Rabel eventually made contact when he ran out of room to go. You could see Rabel with the front end damage. Let's watch. The 9's going to get loose on the transition, and it's going to take him too much time to gather up. He is not making that, and right there, Rabel has to get adjusted to the inside of that yellow cone, or he's going to be penalized. He had no choice there but to either get the damage or to drive through the grass and cost himself more time by either going another lap around or getting a stop penalty.
Yeah, both of those drivers, I think, Evan, were very likely too hot into the pit lane. Very quick. Just couldn't get it slowed up in time. Chicagoland's a very deceptive pit entry because of how tight that apex is. Look at for Rabel's case. He had a very hard time even getting inside the yellow cone in the first place. But now Kevin King's coming in. And he's very efficient when it comes to getting to the pit lane. There's a reason the top drivers practice this. He just ran 96 miles an hour down to the apron before slamming down to the brakes to get to the speed limit.
He is very efficient onto the pit lane entry, and I have to ask Thomas as a driver, if you're Rabel there, right, in the contact with the car in front of him, when you're coming down pit road and there's a car immediately pitting in front of you, are you basing your braking points on that car at all? I mean, is that how we can kind of see two cars overcook it at the same time because the guy second in line's using that first car as a judgment?
It's difficult to sometimes judge that, especially when the tires are this hot. Usually, in my case, I'm more conservative when it comes to pit road, but you can use that car in front of you. The problem is, if you are right on that car's rear bumper, you're going to possibly run him over and cause you to both have issues here. It's just a matter of understanding where you're going to be able to hit your brakes at and not lock up the tires. And we see it all the time at places like, or at the big tracks like Talladega and Daytona, where you have sometimes upwards of 20 cars all coming to pit road, and it's not necessarily judging, what the other car is doing, but just trying to stay as far away from them as possible when you get onto pit road. But we saw with Kevin King there, he's able to get aggressive and do essentially a Kyle Busch, be efficient getting on the pit road and make up the additional track time that he's lost. And he's right back on the back bumper of the 44, Michael Arias, so he really did not lose any time to the leader there, so that could spell trouble for the 44 here.
Oh, that's where that difference comes in, and look out, with coming down to the pit lane there was Trevor Valderrama. The lead lap cars had to squeeze high to avoid. Fortunately, they had a heads up and were able to get on by, but the big storyline here is the fact that Michael Araya, as I predicted, pit one lap earlier, Justin, you get that immediate undercut and you buy yourself a second and change. And what that has done is allowed Lariah to get back in front of Kevin King. Now that does not solve Michael Arias' Kevin King problem, right? Kevin was faster on the long run last run. We assume that the 31 will likely be better on the long run this time. But at least for a moment in time, that one lap difference of when they decided to come down to the pit lane has allowed Michael Araya to clear Kevin King. Now, two more things to do. He needs to get up to David Cobb, and he needs to catch up to Anthony DeBarro. DeBarro, the net race leader, having pitted 6 laps ago, is in P7 as we rate. Actually, it's Cohen, I should say, who pitted 10 laps ago, way early, the net race leader, as we wait on the top 5 to still come down pit road. But all those cars are in front of King and Lariah on older tires and will likely be caught up to pretty quickly.
Looks like Cobb's not really making too many friends here Roy playing defensive with a 5-lap tire difference. I've noticed, though, with Kevin King, he's really backed it on down. I think he knows that he's better on that long run, just trying to preserve the tire temps, while Lariah is having the counter of, okay, you think you can beat me on the long run? Try and catch me if you can. The thing is, Kevin King is not fighting for it. By the way, the difference in the pit lane interval with that experience, Evan, 1 second picked up on the delta for Kevin King, cone to cone alone.
That is big pickups there as Kevin King now needs to get around David Cobb. That is the number 11 machine up the road. And Lariah, I mean, opening things up on the short end of the run again. Kevin King has been consistently one of the best cars long run. I expect that to still be the difference maker. The drivers who have stayed out, Schmidt, Casto, Winemaster, Ewing, and Johnson, all drivers who were kind of in the mid-pack area and, thought that the drivers who were going to stay out here would mainly be drivers in that position. Mid-pack, trying to catch a yellow, trying to, be advantageous and gain some track position with a little bit of assistance. They're probably going to stay out until they need to come down to the pit lane. But, the real battle is Cohen on back from 6th on back, and Lariah has been very good so far. As you take a look at your race leader, how about that? William Schmidt, that's a bonus point for him as they get around Sean Casto in the battle for the race lead, and that's what fresh tires look like. There goes Chris Rabel on through. 9-car at Chambliss going to do the very same thing, but the battle between Casto and Schmidt on the outside, the slowest of the cars on frame. That was the battle for the race lead. Casto is in from 2nd.
Yeah, and those top 5 cars, they're just hoping a caution comes out that can help in their favor. But man, if we've heard it, Darrell Waltrip say numerous times, 4 feel goods, they make you feel like Superman. But those 4 feel goods won't last forever, as we see DeBarro just inching his way towards the Cohan here, his Disney Motorsports teammate. Actually, it's already passed him there for the what will be the lead when it cycles through. The question I now have for DeBarro, has he figured out something to be able to save his tires, so that he has something that will equal out when the 44 and 31 perhaps catch him? It's just one of those things that he played the strategy. He short pitted a little bit more than they did, but maybe just enough to have the tires cycle out through and be able to hold them off for the win here. But still got 30 laps to go, so it's still a long way before that checker flag hits.
And now the countdown begins. Inside of 30 laps to go from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. You're watching race number 5 of the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series here on RaceSpotTV. Jared Winemaster will pit from the race lead. That'll hand things off to Shane Ewing, who is also pitting from the number 2 spot, and that will cycle everything through. And Anthony DeBarro will cycle, and he will be the race leader. At the top of the scoring pile now, inside of 30 laps to go. Lariah, needing to close in on him, is in 2nd, but Kevin King has got back to him, and the battle for 2nd is 2 seconds behind your race leader.
Now, this is very intriguing strategy from DeBarro. I think he's hoping right now that they spend so long battling the battle for 2nd, that he's just able to equalize things out a little bit, despite having a couple lap fresher tire, or older tire, should say. It's not going to be easy, but he essentially needs these two to squabble for a good long while to have him a realistic shot at this point. King, meanwhile, though, you can see right there with that line, knows exactly what he needs to do to build up the ramp, try and get himself clear for the entry to turn 3.
Trying to set it up, but he's got the position and he has the nose in front. That's key. He needs to get up in front of Michael Lariah. He has done it. Kevin King gets around Lariah, takes over 2nd with 27 laps to go, and now can set his sights on DeBarro up the road, who's got about 2 lap older tires. Now, Lariah's not going to go away without a fight, but I think all indicators that Kevin King is going to be the driver to watch here again. Only made his debut last week at Mid-Ohio, was transferred off of the wait list after missing the first 3 weeks of the season. He cannot realistically compete for the championship, is here to play spoiler. And again, I talked about how important a race win would have been for Lariah tonight. I think that big championship moment has happened there with Lariah losing that position to the 31 car.
Yeah, but it may not be it may not be a bad night for Lariah or Liam Sheen. They're running 3rd and 4th right now. Andrew Freenosh is only running 11th, and I know That's not a big point swing, but if it continues to be like this, where he's running outside of the top 10 and Lariah and Sheen are in the top 5 here, it's still a swing for them a little bit, and you never know if Andrew misses the race. That could be a deciding factor in the championship. And as we're watching Kevin King here, he's just clicking off tenths off of DeBarro's time here, along with Liam Sheen. I think DeBarro played the gamble and hoped that maybe those tires will cycle out and even out before the end of this run. Either that or he's saving something, but I don't know. That 31 just looks like it's on rails right now.
He is locked in as he sets his sights on DeBarro up towards the front of the field. This is good news for DeBarro because he gets some bonus points for leading a lap. We've had a handful of drivers lead laps tonight. Bonus points have gone to Lariah, DeBarro, Schmidt, King, Davis, Widemaster, and notably Andrew Freenosh did lead a lap through this cycle. So because of that lap led by Freenosh, he gets a bonus point. That is just another possible point that a DeBarro or a Sheen or a Lariah could have made up on him that slides away. And listen, it's 1 point, one bonus point. May not sound like a lot now, but if we have a close championship battle into the last couple of weeks, every single point matters. So Freenosh has locked up a bonus point for lap led. It's also important to note that Michael Lariah has locked up the most laps led. So that is an additional bonus point. He's led 75. Nobody can lead more than that. So Lariah has guaranteed himself the maximum of 2 bonus points in this race. That's big for his championship hopes, but I think it's time to cue the Jaws music because Kevin King going to start to enter the frame. There he is. Should have him in about 2-3 laps.
And to say he's probably going to be hungry for this race lead is an understatement. He's been positioning himself in the right strategy windows, the right pace on the long run to be able to put himself in this spot. For Lariah, though, he's going to need to fight very hard to try and hold on with this 2-lap difference on the tires right now. Plus, he's getting a slight bit of dirty air from a lap car. Kane much quicker in the corner, and now DeBarro's trying to park it on him.
Well, DeBarro knows this is it. This is his last stand, and as Kevin King tried to go to the outside, DeBarro just kind of unwinded the wheel a little bit, went up and shut the door. I just don't see any way DeBarro's going to be able to make this last, but why not try? This time by 20 laps to go from Chicago. DeBarro, in theory, has the better defensive line on the outside, but Kevin King's going to drive it real hard off and into turn number 3. Not all the way clear yet, but right there, even picking up the gas on the bottom, the 31 is just better right now. He'll dive to the apron. He is almost all the way through, and he'll try to wrap this one up in 1 and 2. DeBarro keeping a nose there. He's fine into the middle, and he stay up top. I mean, give credit to DeBarro. Thought Kevin King would be long gone by now, but that 27 is hanging on by a thread.
If there's one thing I know about Anthony DeBarro racing him over the years, he does not give up at this stage of the race. He wants to fight, but I think those tires just give and gone as he looks like he got a little loose there coming out of 4. He's not gonna give up yet, even though Kevin King is clearly faster right now. He's gonna try and stay in that draft. He's gonna try and hold on to second. I mean, we got less than 20 laps to go. At this point, he's not gonna do what he was doing earlier and giving up the spots. He's gonna fight for every inch of real estate he's got there. But right now, Kevin King just has those right front tires, just the tires in general. He's got them saved up to where he needs them. He's not going to push the issue any further than he needs to. That's experience. That's what being a former Coke Series driver can give you. Even if you've been removed from it for years, you're still one of the top. He's still one of the top guys in iRacing when it comes to being conservative and being able to understand what his car will give him. So, barring a caution, I don't see this changing any other hands.
That's the question, right? Does this race allow itself to play out? And also, what happens in a battle for second position, right? Michael Lariah may not have a chance to get a second race win of the year here today, but he can get another point back if he can get around DeBarro in the fight for second. That's going to be critical as well. And again, just based on speed, DeBarro knew that this was the bet he was making for himself when he went for the way undercut on the short pitch strategy, try to get himself the track position. He has given himself kind of the disadvantage in this duo, and I think Lariah should be able to do it with 17 more times around the track to figure it out. And again, just get another point back, giving him 35 points. If he finishes second, plus 30, or plus the 2 bonus points, would give him 37 total. So that's what he's looking for, and he'll go all the way to the apron to make the move, but lap traffic up the road, going to make them go 3 wide. Josh Ball holds the outside, and DeBarro was really loose that time into the corner.
Yeah, right now, Lariah trying to force that issue right now, try and heel him off the bottom of the racetrack. The tough part is, and it was talked about by Thomas George a little bit, DeBarro, he's not giving up easily. If anything, he'd rather have a wrestling match for second of this mark, knowing this is probably his best situation, knowing the pace that Kevin King showcasing right now in this long run. So at this point, DeBarro, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't back off here this entire rest of the way. Try and force Lariah down to the bottom of the racetrack, like right there. Force him off the gas, force him to have to lift, not be able to get the run.
And that's the key, again, is using that defensive line. Lariah's used it tonight. DeBarro's used it tonight. I think the only driver I really haven't seen do it is Kevin King, because he's only been moving forwards. Also important to note, Liam Sheen, through all of this, has raced his way up to 4th. So he is also looking to slightly close that gap in on Andrew Freenach for the championship if his result can hold tonight. Freenach was all the way up into a top 3 spot on the last caution flag, but we think in part due to some damage that he received on the restart, has not been as good on the long run and has trickled down to 7th. Could be, his worst result of the year. Seems funny to say that 7th place, would be a bad result for Andrew Freenach, but his results this year have been 1, 3, 2, and 5. So he has not finished outside of the top 5 at all. Lariah going to give this one another go, but DeBarro again doing everything he can to make it difficult.
And you see DeBarro using that outside lane. Had a little bit of a miscue coming off of 4 there, a little wiggle, if you will. He's just using that momentum on the high side, and you got to give him credit for not giving up that 2nd place, but there's also this to factor in. Watching the 31 car, Kevin King, I've noticed a couple of times what looked like maybe some issues of stability with that car. So I'm not saying that he will drop out or have issues with any internal components, but if he does, this battle for 2nd could be your battle for the win. So I can understand DeBarro not wanting to give up that 2nd place, because especially if a caution comes out or King does drop out. If a caution comes out, he has that 1 extra position. He might be able to be the 31 off of pit road, but that's all ifs and buts. You don't know what's going to happen here as we're coming in close to 10 laps to go here. So we'll see if DeBarro can hold off the 44 for that remainder of the race.
Running out of time, we also saw, the incident off of turn 2, Justin, involving a couple of cars, at the end of that last run, right before pit stops, when drivers started to hit the number 40 on the tires. Everybody really started to struggle. These tires are going to be at that same point right in the dying laps of this race. So just another thing to keep in mind in terms of can this go the distance, is we're probably going to see a couple of those scares again. And what this holding up strategy from DeBarro has done is brought Sheen into the picture. Sheen really was not a factor back and forth, but now it's a 3-way fight for 2nd spot, and again, DeBarro stays on the outside of Lariah.
Something's got to give here at this rate with 10 laps to go, coming up to 9. DeBarro definitely looks like he's struggling at this point. He's put his tires to the very limit. He can't keep this up, I don't think, Evan, at this rate without overheating that right front tire, or at least trying to bobble around a little bit. And you mentioned it was Sheen. He's been essentially just slowly taking his time, running his own pace, similar lap times to Kevin King, but not matching those lap times each time around. He's just waiting for the opportunity to pass on by both of them, since he's going to have the fresher tires out of them, since these two have burned them up. Here he goes.
All the way to the inside, 3 wide in a battle for 2nd spot with Sheen on the very bottom. He'll get around Lariah, but he still can't find the answer for Anthony DeBarro. And Anthony stays on the outside, and now it's just a role reversal, right? If you want this to change, I think you got to get to the outside of DeBarro. On the top side, he doesn't care if there's 1 car underneath him, 2 cars underneath him. He's going to park the bus and just do exactly what he has been doing. And now the question is, What do you focus on more if you're Lariah or Sheen? Do you really want to fight through to get second? But is it worth sacrificing third, trying to get DeBarro? Do you just deal with the car next to you? It's a 3-car battle with 7 laps to go. This time by Kevin King's advantage, now 2+ seconds out in front.
I gotta be honest, if I'm in their shoes, I don't think I'm thinking about points at this moment now. The competitive side of these guys are coming out. I mean, you got DeBarro holding off these two on clearly much older tires. You've got Michael Lariah doing the same thing to the 92 here, who's got pressured tires. Just using that high line, using the momentum. You see the 44 and the 92 there, nose to tail, kind of following each other's footsteps. Maybe they decide, you know what? Let's figure out how to get by this 27 so we can get ourselves some points and get back into this points battle. It may not be for the win, but hey, it's an exciting battle for second. And that's what we want to see when it comes to racing. We want to see fantastic battles. We want to see back and forth. And we see these three about to have to negotiate the lap car of JP Pasquarelli here in the 77. Will that cause any issues? Let's find out.
He's going to hold the top side, and what it's going to do, I think, is deter a Lariah or a Sheen from trying to make another go at DeBarro here. But what this is going to do is they don't clear Pasquarella. So the 27 is going to get a little bit of a better run that time off of 4, and it's going to slightly affect these guys' ability to get into the corner. See how DeBarro's able to go all the way to the fence. Sheen and Lariah weren't able to do that. So DeBarro, again, just getting the small advantage here and there, it seems like, aside from the fight with Kevin King. DeBarro getting all the little breaks he needs to try to get second place in this race. Of course, we talk about stakes. Freenosh came into tonight leading the championship by 28 points ahead of Michael Lariah. Lariah sitting third at the moment. Liam Sheen was 33 points back from Freenosh. He sits at fourth. And your championship leader, Andrew, has slid all the way down now to position number 8 as Dylan Parker has made a late pass on him. But Anthony DeBarro, the one fighting hard for those P2 points. He's done it for long enough. Not a driver in the championship picture. Just trying to play spoiler here this afternoon. Is only going to have to hang on for 3 more laps this time by.
He's definitely slipping and sliding that DeBarro sliders machine. Very punny to say the very least, but at this point, you don't want to be that driver who slides out of the spot. Here comes the dive bomb in the slide job attempt from Lariah. Not enough grip, though, to clear by.
And again, tries to make the bottom work, but I think he needs something different. He's seen that move. The 27 knows what to do to defend that one. And if I'm Liam Sheen, I'm waiting for Lariah to try. And the second that 44 car tries to make a move, I'm going and I'm at least trying to get third away from him. This time by 2 laps to go from Chicago Thomas. They need to get back to the white flag for this one to be official. And Lariah again goes to the inside of the 27.
Yeah, Lariah's got to do something different here. The 27's seen that move, as you said, numerous times before, and they're side by side right now. He's made it stick. Could he throw the slide job in here coming to 3? We come into the white flag this time by Kevin King well off in the distance here. Will they be able to make it before the caution? Meanwhile, the 44 just trying to edge it out as they all take the white flag here at Chicagoland.
They do get the white flag. This race is official. 1 lap to go up front as the battle for second position continues to rage on. The 44 of Lariah trying to clear. Has Liam Sheen found his way to the outside? No. DeBarro shuts the door down again. This fight going to go all the way to the bitter end. In front of it all, Kevin King looking for the race win in just his second RSR start. King wins at Chicago. Here we go for second. DeBarro, Lariah, side by side, and Lariah edges it out, sneaks the extra championship point with a last lap pass for the 44 car. It's mission accomplished for Lariah. DeBarro hangs on the podium, and Kevin King, Justin, is an RSR winner in his first oval start.
And he made it look very easy to say the very least tonight. He didn't have the best qualifying pace, obviously. Middle of the pack in qualifying. But he just bided his time, ran patiently, and just took advantage with the long run pace. Just made it look very easy once we got a long green flag run for Kevin King. He'll be joined by Liam Sheen as they look to celebrate a big victory.
An incredible job. The celebration is underway. Kevin King is a race winner in the Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. He becomes race winner number 108 all-time in RSR history. And when it comes to this Winter Series, he becomes race winner number 27. Dual burnout with his teammate Liam Sheen as they celebrate on the front straightaway. Let's take a look at your Sim Speed Shop full race results tonight from Joliet. Kevin King gets the race win, final margin of victory 3.3 seconds ahead of Michael Araya, who steals second away from Anthony DeBarro in the closing laps. DeBarro finishes third. We'll talk with all of them in just a moment. Liam Sheen and Brandon DeBuie do round through your top 5 finishers in a late pass for Andrew Freenosh to go from position number 8 to 6 and steal back 2 major championship points. Means that Freenosh finishes ahead of Cobb and Silver with Cody Harris and Joseph Tice, our top 10.
11th spot tonight going the direction of Sam Nieto. Was looking quick early on, but after contact on a restart, not able to recover due to rear end damage. Grant Davis, very quietly, remember at the Midway race break, was in 20th position. He finishes in 12th. A very solid second half of the race for him. Dylan Parker, meanwhile, he looked very quick early on, especially to the midway point, but then fell off to 13th. John Casto finished in 14th with Ross Cato in 15th. William Schmidt quietly went 33rd to 16th. Brandon Six, after his slide to the grass, went to 17th. Chris Rabel, despite significant contact and having to stop for about 10 seconds on the pit lane to try and get untangled with the driver, finished in 18th. Ryan Chambliss, Jaron Widemaster, the top 20.
And continuing on through 21st tonight, and last car on the lead lap is Alexander Russell. He finishes ahead of the 5 cars that are 1 lap down. That'll be Medansi Major 22nd. It'll be Kyle Trudell 23rd, James Pasquarella 24th, Michael Johnson 25th, and Josh Ball in the number 26 spot. A couple of drivers further on down include Valderrama +2, Ewing and Soa +4, and Nick Cohan in 30th +25.
Also amongst those out of the race, Kyle Kamer 35 laps down in 31st, with Tim Johnston 45 laps down 32nd. Riley Burke, after meeting Kevin King on the racetrack, finished in 33rd, with Jeremy Miller 34th. Chris Edwards, Matthew Mara, Tom Moreno rounded out the field runners tonight.
Look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop full race results. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Let's head down to Chicagoland Speedway Victory Lane and talk with the driver of the number 31 Chevrolet. Kevin King is your race winner in tonight's Sim Speed Shop 125. Kevin, congratulations on the win in this one. Certainly looked like you enjoyed all of those green flag laps at the end of the race. 15th in Q, but we saw you picking away, and certainly on those long runs, you guys had it figured out. Congrats.
Hey, I appreciate it, Evan. I think it's the first time I've ever been interviewed by you.
Right? Seems
I think
weird.
So, yeah. That's interesting. I hear you interview everyone else. I'm like, man. But yeah, that was interesting. I definitely didn't have a good qualifying lap. But I felt good in the race. Really hard to pass. And then I did a little bit of a strategic call there and low fueled a little bit. And just drove more conservative the first 10 laps, and it really paid off. And so... yeah, I'm pretty happy. You know, anytime you can win is cool, but in a new league with a lot of good drivers that I've never heard of, Michael's, you know, I've never raced against him, but super impressive. Haven't raced with Anthony in a long time, super impressive. I know Drew got some damage there, but he was going to be rough. And of course, Liam, my new teammate, drove really well. So I'm super pumped. A lot of good drivers. So that was fun.
We were talking pre-race, you know, you don't see Chicago on, you know, the current NASCAR Cup schedule, but it's still a track that it makes it into a lot of the official schedules here on the iRacing service. You know, what's your experience like with these Xfinity Series cars at Chicago? I mean, was it a learning curve trying to jump back into this, or is it a package and a combo that you've raced with on a, you know, a kind of a regular basis?
Yeah, we've run it before. The biggest thing that I noticed was the bottom groove was definitely a tire saver, but it was really slow. So you kind of had to make up your mind in terms of what you wanted to do. So as much as I ran the bottom to try to save tires, you eventually start roasting them because you're getting on the gas sooner than the guys that are running the top. And the top just had this grip strip where you can just kind of launch off the corner. So while I prefer being on the bottom, the top was definitely cool to see it working. But it definitely made it hard to pass, which is one of those, it's great, but it sucks because, you can't really pass anyone, even though you might be a little faster. But with these cars, you have to be so timid on the throttle because they like to eat the rear tires up. And that's what I didn't do a good job of the first run. And then the second and third run, I felt like I did a lot better job doing that. And just really just let the car do its thing and roll into the throttle. You have to be so patient with these things, but it definitely paid off. But I've always loved this track. It's always been one of those finesse style tracks. You can't really bull your way through a lap time. So my driving style kind of fit perfect, I think.
When talking about racetracks that everybody likes, Rockingham is going to be next Monday night. Again, another track that you don't see on the calendar these days. Bit of a different reason, but a bit longer since we've raced at Rockingham than it has been that a Cup Series race has happened here at Chicago. But that's going to kick off the second half of this campaign. Of course, you guys came in last week at Mid-Ohio, so not in a position to fight for the championship. So what's the outlook going into the Rock?
Man, the Rock, I've been racing here for a long time, and I've never really liked that place, and especially with the pure scan track of all the bumps and stuff. That one's going to be tough. I mean, you definitely have to hug the lines in 3 and 4. You have to be really diligent in how you're attacking turn 1 and 2. It's gonna be interesting. I don't foresee myself being super fast there, but I think it's gonna be a challenging track because it gets so tight off the corners. And you have to be just so precise in how you run the thing. And the guy who's able to do that is just going to walk away from the field more than likely because it's just that little bit of knowing how to drive the place is huge in lap times and actually huge in tire wear too. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch and drive on, but it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be really tough.
Looking forward to that one. In the meantime, we're taking a nice slow-mo look at that burnout with you and Liam. Before we let you guys jump out of here, sponsors and shout-outs and all those good folks, who do you want to say hi to?
I want to say hi to all the guys, the team. I know we're getting geared up for the Road to Pro season here, starting up in a couple months, which is always fun. But I have some really good group of guys this season that we added on, so I appreciate all those guys putting in the work so far. Liam, Jared, Jackson, Blake, Logan. There's somebody to thank and whatnot. Sim Magic, Outrun Esports, Team Associated, J Concepts, real life sponsors for my RC stuff, and you, because you're like a legend, right? You're like a legend in broadcasting, and I get to watch you. When I wasn't in Coke, I get to watch you all the time, and I finally get to get interviewed by you. So that's awesome. Great league, great atmosphere. So I appreciate everything you guys do, putting these things on because it's not easy. So hopefully it was a pretty good race. I'm gonna go watch it back.
It was an exciting one for certain, and appreciate you and all the guys for being a part of this here on Monday nights and giving us a show to watch, Kevin. So it's good to catch up with you. Congratulations on the win. Hopefully for your sake, this success continues, and maybe we'll talk to you next Monday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That is your race winner in tonight's RealSimRacing Winter Series race from Chicago. Kevin King gets checkered flag number 1 of his RSR career. Second place tonight goes to Michael Lariah. Justin, he had to work hard for that runner-up finish. Your trackside with the driver of the 44.
Yes, indeed. Perfect run coming out of turn 4 to set things up to get it by a nose. Coming to the checker flag for second. Michael, talk us through the wrestling match. That was you and Anthony DeBarro fighting for second.
Yeah, that was a really good battle at the end there. I was talking to Anthony for a bit, and really hard racing, but we kept it clean. On that last pit stop there, I first of all, I thought Anthony, he might have had it won because of just being able to pit before myself and Kevin there with the lead that he got, but it turned around. We were able to run him down, but the thing was, I didn't get enough of a jump on Kevin there, so he was really fast all night, and he was pretty much right on my bumper after that pit sequence. So kind of going through my head, I'm wondering, do I try to hold him off, but I know he's faster here, or do I just let him go, maybe hope that he's going to run down Anthony, and they'll battle for a bit and just wear their tires out. So I elected to go with that, and it kind of was me sacrificing a win, but it allowed me to get right up to Anthony and ultimately get that second place finish. Yeah, it was pretty much like a chess match at the end there. Anthony knew that probably my best chance at getting a run on him was going to be using the top in 1 and 2, and he took that line away, so it was getting really tough to make something happen. But as the run went on and the tires were starting to wear, I could tell he was just sliding a little bit more. Just that allowed me to get a good enough run to stay on the inside going through 3 and 4, and just cut it right down to the grass, and I just was able to get that position. So it was a good points night overall, but still kind of disappointed to not get that win.
Now, in terms of how tonight fared out, it did look strong in terms of the points, we'll say, with Andrew Freenosh having some struggles where he essentially had a hole in his nose the entire second half of the race. Essentially, you gain some points now in the championship perspective, but what's kind of the approach now, knowing how tight things are starting to get in the championship?
It really just putting in effort each week to really go over the tracks and make sure that I'm doing my part on my end as far as, just what's the optimal line, what can I do to save tires throughout a long run if we get them, and also experimenting with different lines too if I'm put in awkward positions or if I have to move around and search. That's really important, but really just being able to qualify up front is extremely important with this league. You'll notice that the times that a lot of guys run here are extremely close. So if you have to battle people and you're starting mid-pack and you got to make up a lot of positions, it's just you're behind the 8 ball. So being able to start near the front is really important. But ultimately, my approach is to treat these races like I have to win them. Not necessarily where I got to make really aggressive decisions and ultimately have to get the wins, but really put myself in that position where I can stay in the top 3 and hopefully capitalize. That's really going to be key. I know with who I'm going up against with Andrew, it's going to be really tough because he's so consistent, but just having the runs like I did tonight, where if he does have a little bit of bad luck and I can capitalize and gain those points, that's what I have to do. Looking forward to the schedule. I know Talladega is going to be a very nerve-wracking race. I think that's honestly going to probably make or break who wins this championship with that race.
A lot of big picture discussions you're bringing up there, but in the short term, Rockingham's up next. Your thoughts on that racetrack, because you still have to deal with that track at the very least, and New Hampshire, before you go to Talladega.
Rockingham is probably one of my favorite tracks on iRacing. I feel like I have a lot of experience there compared to a lot of the drivers in the league, and I just knowing kind of what I know running that race. Again, if you can start near the front, things usually will spread out a bit, but I'm just hoping the race does go green. I feel like if it ends up going green, that's really going to suit me. But it's a very tough track. I think turn 2 is probably where you're going to be seeing some issues occur. There could be some nasty pileups. Hoping that doesn't happen, but coming out of turn 2, that wall narrows up really fast. So it's definitely going to be a challenging race, but I personally look forward to it.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
I got to, of course, thank my teammates just for putting in the work every week to practice and just to learn new things and just to make us better. Got to thank Sim Speed Shop for being on the car for the Winter Series, and they're also going to be on board the car for 2022 as well. So it's great to continue that partnership. And of course, I got to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast.
Congratulations on second place tonight. The difference, by the way, 15/100ths of a second. Congrats.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Michael Ryan coming home in second tonight. And the next driver, he was hungry for a second place run tonight. He may be hungry for burgers, but he's still finishing third regardless, Thomas. He's with you.
That's right, Justin. My friend here, Mr. Anthony DeBarro. My friend, from a driver's perspective, do you think you could have done anything any different there to maybe hold off Kevin and then hold off the 44, or were the tires just completely cooked there? Because that was great to watch the battle, but you were sliding all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, the driver could have done a better job with I was rushing the throttle. I could have rolled the center a little more. I think I was scrubbing the tires a little too much. Just got to learn what to do, and these guys are really good. So, I mean, I'm happy to run third. I think, like I said, I did a little better job with the tires, and obviously I pitted a couple laps before them, so they had that little bit of advantage. But I was kind of thinking a caution might come out, and then everyone's on equal tires then, so it just didn't work out. But third, that's a good run, and we'll take it. I mean, second loser, but it's kind of stings. We'll get one of these days. Yeah,
it was a great battle to watch, though. I mean, Lariah caught when Kevin King got past you, and then Lariah got to you. I thought that the tires had been completely cooked out there, and you just kept using that outside line. I mean, were you able to find something up there that could have changed the momentum around a little bit? Maybe if you had done a little bit of a different pit strategy, you think you could have won there, or was it just you couldn't quite figure out what the car needed to get back up there? It's just from driver to driver. Obviously, you and I have both been in that position, and I'm just trying to pick your brain on that one.
Ultimately, like you'll know what I'm talking about. I lost the race not getting by the 44 before the last pit stop. I think if I would have cleared him when I got back to him after that restart, I went by him, then he passed me back, and I called him back. If I would have passed him, I think I could have got a little bit of a gap, and then from there I could have controlled the race more rather than being third. And I think it was about a second back when we pitted, and I pitted early. I'm kind of just on the offense, and I could have been more of waited till they pitted and then pitted a lap or two after, and then been chasing them down kind of deal. So it's just circumstance, and it feels good that I can hop in the car and just go out there and run third. So we'll build off of that, and we'll see where it goes.
Now, the next track we're going to is Rockingham, and from our super late model races we've been in together, you're pretty good at being able to run those types of tracks and save the tires for the most part, and usually you're finishing up in the top 3 to usually winning at least 1 or 2 races. Do you think you may have something? Is there any way you could translate the super late model short tracks we've run into the Xfinity car in Rockingham? Or is it just a little bit too much of a difference there?
No, it's way a difference, and I think it's just going to be, you're going to have to qualify well. It's going to be a single lane racetrack, and you got to have to stay out of trouble, and it gets really tight off turn 2, and everyone knows that at Rockingham. So I think it's going to be more of a survival race. I hope it's not. I hope we get a lot of green flag runs, but it's going to be really hard to pass, and I think qualifying, honestly, is going to be everything. You got to run Rockingham. You back the corners up until you go fast there. So I mean, now I'm giving my secrets away on the interview, but it's I think most of these guys they know how to run Rockingham already, so I don't have to tell them anything.
So, well, with all that said, I think we got the important questions out of the way. The last one I got to give you is, who do you got to thank for all this, man? I know you're going to be thanking all the Dizzy boys back there.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my 2 biggest fans, Josh Garlick and Nicholas Chambrone. I want to tell him get well soon, because he had a pretty gruesome pectoral injury getting off the couch yesterday, and he's down for the count. I don't know if he's going to be able to race here for a while. It's a weird circumstance, hurt you rip a pectoral muscle getting off the couch, but hey, it's I don't know what happened there, but we'll see. We'll see if we get him better and get him back in the sim soon.
Well, as long as it's not super serious and he can get back in there some point, I'm sure he'll be all right. We all got to get to deal with those, man. But like I said, great watching you race tonight. Always fun to watch you race. Always fun to race with you. You know that. I know that. And we'll see you at Rockingham, right?
Yeah, I just want to thank Evan for putting this all on, and obviously RaceSpot. I mean, they're the best in the business. So, I'm glad I finally got into the interview booth this season. I mean, we had a lot of speed, but we haven't we haven't been able to capitalize on. So we'll hopefully put some consistent runs here and go into the Cup Series and with some momentum and carry that over,
Sounds good, my friend. Well, you have a good rest of the night and appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you.
That's our top finishers here this afternoon. A big thanks to all the drivers for sticking around and chatting with us. Race winner Kevin King, second place finisher Michael Araya, and third place finisher Anthony DeBarro. And we'll jump right back to you, Thomas, on this one for final thoughts as we take a look at the championship standings coming out of this one. Some progress. The gap that Andrew Freenosh holds on the rest of the field was trimmed slightly by Michael Araya. Of course, that last second to pass helps his cause. The difference between those two is down to 23 points. Liam Sheen picks up a single point in third. He is now 32 behind Freenosh, but we're halfway home. Freenosh is leading the championship, but had a little bit of bad luck tonight and keeps Laraya and Sheen within striking distance.
Yep, and we talked about that throughout the race, and the schedule's not going to get any easier for Andrew or for the rest of them, for that matter. A lot of most, if not, I think all the tracks that we're going to for the Winter Series have similar tire type of fall off. They're all abrasive tracks. They all fall off really good. Makes it very difficult to race on them, especially next race at Rockingham. And we also can't forget about the good old restrictor plate, where anything can happen and everything can go wrong. So it's going to be a pretty good points battle, I think. And if 1992 has taught us anything, nobody's truly out of it, especially when it's this close.
Yeah, we had ground close at both of the championships tonight because Flat Out Motorsports also closing in a little bit on keeping it real. Even though KIR had finishers tonight finish 4 and 6, it comes down to some of the top finishers. So that gap sits right now at a difference of 51 points. It was a bad night for Extreme Performance Motorsports. They have dropped huge to minus 113 on the top team in the championship. Of course, coming into this evening, it was 57 points in favor of KIR, but Extreme Performance was only 62 off, so they have fallen way off of the rear, Thomas. But thanks for joining us tonight, and hope that you can join us a couple more times throughout the year.
I plan on doing it. Just all has to fall in place. It's always fun to have a fun time up here in the booth calling the race with you guys, despite my unprofessionalism and not being quite as qualified. I'm a racer before this, so just kind of gear myself up for the Gen 7, but I'll definitely be back.
It's better than me pretending to know what I'm talking about. We'll have an actual driver give us the insights, Justin, as well. Justin, thanks for joining us as well, stepping in and filling in for Nolan tonight. Hope Nolan feels better and can get back to us soon. But Kevin King's a race winner at RSR. That's a new development, right? Him competing here, and of course, for all the new things, there are still the RSR things, and that's a dominant Andrew Freenosh. But again, challenged a little bit tonight. We've seen the likes of Laraya and Sheen and DeBar. I mean, you heard it there with Kevin King in his interview, right? How much progress those guys have made since last time he kind of raced with them. I think goes to show that even if it's not new drivers coming in, the existing talent pool continues to get better and better, and we're halfway through this championship. It's certainly skewed in Andrew's favor, but is far from done.
Yeah, I think it's understated just how impressive what Andrew Freenosh did tonight, because as we've seen, he had a hole in the front nose. Usually, if you have that significant of aero damage on the front nose, Evan, you're not making it to the front. You're likely in the mid-pack by the end of the race at minimum.
Half the guys put it on a hook.
Yeah, he was running in the top 10 for the most part, despite having to where you can see the motor from up above from the flag stand as he passed on by. He just utilized his talent to be able to keep himself up in the front and took advantage of a lot of craziness towards the end around the start and finish line to pick up a couple spots. But that's the main thing. This is just his worst finish of the season, and it's a 6th. It's going to be difficult to try and keep up with him, I think, and hope he has an error slip up again if you're the rest of the field, because it's almost similar to if you fought Lon Evan with line art competition, an Adam Walker situation where he finished top 5 every single time he hit the track. It's a similar situation where Andrew Freenosh right now, every single time, except for the time he's basically had a completely demolished race car, has finished inside the top 10, even though he had the demolished car. still finished inside the top 10. He's got himself a great position right now to be able to keep on going. It's just a matter of making races, making sure he doesn't get involved in a massive, crazy, chaotic wreck.
I think wins are going to be the big story, right? It's not like a Cup Series where a win is a win and you're in. It's how I described earlier. It's those extra 5 points. If you're 25 points behind Andrew, you're likely not going to get there if you're beating him by 2 or 3 spots unless you're winning the race. That 5-point bump every single week, right? Instead of 1 point per position, that 5-point bump is huge. And we've seen 5 different race winners over the first 5 races of this season. So Lariah, Sheen, they're going to need to start knocking off 2 or 3 wins in the second half of this season, I think, if they're going to get to Andrew, unless Andrew, of course, has to miss a race or has a big issue, like at a track like Talladega a little bit later on. One final thought, Justin, is we're going to Rockingham next week. It's not a track that gets on a lot of these calendars, but the drivers all kind of like the track as far as the nostalgia of it, but maybe they're not all in agreement that if it's a track that's in their wheelhouse. Kevin King doesn't think he's going to be all that good. I think Michael Araya thinks he's going to be great, so that should be a fun one next week.
Yeah, I'm curious on how that plays out because Rockingham is the type of racetrack where if you push hard on the short run, you're falling off 7 seconds in terms of pace likely because your tires are essentially about to go bald. If you really save the tires early, you're a rocket ship by lap 50. It's the type of racetrack that, there's the saying of a cheese grater for tires, it's like molten lava on the tires if you're too hard on them. So the best drivers will be the ones who know how to be patient, but also know how to tire save, and tire save efficiently the whole entire run. If you push too hard at any certain point, you're in massive trouble. It could also be a very much attrition track, I think, Evan, because it's not an easy track to conquer whatsoever, especially the run off turn 2. And if you don't know the proper line and get the preparation in on said line, you're likely not making it out of the corner. So it's not going to be an easy race whatsoever for any of the drivers, in my opinion.
You thought Atlanta had a rough track surface. Allow us to introduce you to Rockingham. That one's going to be a fun one next Monday night. Until then, though, that is it for us here tonight from Chicago. So on behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, on behalf of our partners at SimSpeed Shop, for the entire team at RaceSpotTV, and for your broadcast crew tonight. For our producer downstairs, Hugo Luis, for our driver analyst up top, Thomas George, for Justin Princeton and myself, Evan Pasoko. I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Kevin King as the race winner tonight from Joliet. We're back in 1 week's time for the last race of 2021 on Monday, December the 27th from the virtual Rockingham Speedway. That race and every race of the 2022 RealSimRacing SimSpeed Shop Winter Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Chicagoland, where it's Kevin King in RSR Victory Lane.